The kids may be running this weekend at Tampa Bay Downs, but the women are running at the Azeri Stakes in Oaklawn Park. Let's take a full field rundown and check it out. Salutations and welcome, friends. I'm your host to this graded stakes preview. My name is Matthew DeSantis, and you can find me on Twitter at the handle at Failed to Menace. This week, we are going to be taking a very in-depth, close look at the Azeri Stakes taking place at Oaklawn this Saturday, which features the return of Clairiere and Secret Oath amongst a slew of other fillies and mares in a very exciting distaff division. Before we get there, make sure to press that subscribe button here on YouTube to subscribe to Trust the Profits. Make sure to give me a follow on Twitter at the handle at Failed to Menace. We got a ton of different content here. Live betting on Thursday Night Lounge, graded stakes previews, capping the card. I got Barry Spears with me this week as we run down through the whole Tampa Bay Downs card, races 1 through 12. We got Kentucky Oaks countdowns, Kentucky Derby countdowns. We got you covered from wall to wall with horse racing content. But today, like I said, we're going to be talking about the Azeri Stakes at Oaklawn Park on Saturday. I know a lot of people are going to be focused on Tampa, but this is a really great race. And here to join me is a man, you might know him as the Wolf of Oaklawn. You might know him from his notorious OTB podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, but he is my good friend, Chase Sessoms. Chase, how are you doing, my friend? And thank you so much for joining me.
Doing well. Thank you for having me. After the intro, I feel like some sort of like handicapping Megatron. So I'm pretty pumped to go, ready to do battle.
Well, very good. Well, speaking of ready to do battle, we have a couple of fillies and mares that are ready to do battle this weekend. And it is just a spectacular field in the Azeri Stakes. But before we get into the field, wanted to talk a little bit. You obviously are the Wolf of Oaklawn. You pay attention to this as your home track. For folks who are just kind of coming in this weekend, maybe haven't been paying a ton of attention to this entire meet, what are some general trends that we've seen at the track, maybe connections that are particularly on fire, or just how's the track playing in general?
It's interesting because we've gotten so much rain this year that, I think it's easy to take a look at, track trends and say, okay, the inside posts are winning, or okay, this type of run style is winning. But you really have to take into account what kind of track they were running on while this happened, because everything seems to be either in a state of soaked or drying out. So there are a couple trends that I'll point out that are more of just, I don't have the stats behind. They're more kind of eye test things. And what seems to be, the deal is that, if you can dial into what the track is going to do as it's drying out or as moisture accumulates, you can do fairly well. And, with the Azeri this weekend, it looks like we're going to be having kind of like drying out conditions. And with those conditions, the trend seems to be to, the need to be on the rail, saving ground, because if it's going from like muddy to good, it's kind of peanut buttery, a little bit cuppy. It's very tiring. And if it's drying from good to fast, well, I mean, then it just turns into a conveyor belt, it seems.
No, that's very good information. No, and you're right. The weather has been up and down. It feels like in a lot of tracks this year. I mean, I feel like every time I tune into Aqueduct, it's a sleet sealed track, or there's some sort of chaos going on, or a horse without a rider is trying to win the Gotham, or something's taking place. And the same sort of thing is happening at Oaklawn. You're right. Like the weather just really is throwing curveballs, I feel like, at a lot of these races. And obviously we saw that on the two big days, the Southwest Day, and then again on the Rebel, where it was a sloppy sealed track both times. And you do wonder, thinking about that 3-year-old form, how does that project when you all of a sudden have a dry fast track? And, so do you really buy all into wet paint? Do you really buy all into confidence game and some of these other horses who ran well there? So you're right. Got to take that into consideration. But the Azeri is a really exciting field, obviously, of your, adult female horses, your filly, 4-year-old and up fillies and mares. And this is, I don't know about you, like, this is my favorite division maybe right now in horse racing. Like, I love the distaff division, and there's so many great fillies and mares out there.
Hands down. And I mean, you really just have to thank the state of the American thoroughbred industry and American breeding industry, because That's basically what it boils down to, is that you have these great female older horses that have been allowed to race into maturity that are really finally showing what they have. Whereas, if you showed that promise as a 3-year-old male, you're likely, retired and making babies at this point. So,
Yeah.
It's what's great about it is it's going to stay the best division for a very long time, because all that happens is you have, horses like Malathat retire. Well, you're just going to reload with, brand new 4-year-olds at this point with, horses like Secret Oath and Nest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, well, that's a good segue to let's take a look at this 8-horse field for the Grade 2 Azeri Stakes, going a mile and a 16th for 4-year-olds and up. And the morning line favorite is Clairiere, who amazingly has finished third and fourth in the last 2 Breeders' Cup distaffs by a combined length. And so, I mean, she is so close to being a 2-time distaff winner, and yet barely has hit the board even once. So she is your morning line favorite. Secret Oath, as you mentioned, coming back and starting this 4-year-old campaign for D. Wayne Lucas. And then you have Interstate Daydream for Brad Cox, coming off a very nice effort, I think, as a 3-year-old, won the Black Eyed Susan, and coming back off a pretty lengthy layoff, though hadn't run since August. When you take a look at this field, kind of where does your eye go? What are your thoughts on these heavy favorites?
I mean, if you were to look at it just from like a speed figure standpoint, if you're looking at it just from like a workouts, from a class standpoint, you have a big 3 here. The big 3 being Secret Oath, Clairiere, Interstate Daydream. Those are your big 3. Those are the 3 that, if you were to look at every single horse's races and take the most recent 3 speed figures, you throw out any issue where they were on turf or they had trouble or anything. It's those 3, their averages are above everyone else by a wide margin. I do fortunately think that there's going to be a little bit of like pace at play here that might make it worth the shot to try to beat. But if you tell me Secret Oath, Clairiere, or Interstate Daydream win, this race, I'm not shocked in the slightest.
Sure. No, and this is, I think the fact that the 3 of them are in this race, it is interesting that this is not a soft landing spot for any of them. I mean, this is a very salty field, and some of these double-digit horses are very good in their own right. A horse like Hidden Connection for with Ray Luke Gutierrez aboard, it's a very good horse. Lovely Ride has turned in some nice efforts for Diodoro. There's some nice horses in this field, and obviously they have to contend with the other big favorites in this race. So you mentioned the pace. This is potentially a very hot pace in this race because you have some sprinters that are stretching out. You have some horses that just naturally like to be forwardly placed. I think the average fan, when they see that, will naturally assume that will benefit Secret Oath and Clairiere, who like to come running late. They're not the only ones who like to come running late, but what's your thought? Do you think front end speed can hold up, or do you see a pace meltdown situation?
Man, I'm really about to try to thread a needle whenever I give you my prediction for this, because, okay, I'm going to take into account what I think the track conditions are going to be. We've got rain in the forecast here on Friday, but it looks to be a pretty good day on Saturday. So I think you're likely going to see a good drying to fast type track where speed is really going to carry here. Initially, whenever I projected the pace for myself, when I did my own DIY time form pace projection, I was like, yeah, there's going to be a ton of speed here, but you only get there if you mention about who I think is the wild card in this race. That's going to, the entire race result is going to hinge on the tactics of this horse, and it's the number 7 Hot and Sultry, 20-1 for Norm Cassie and David Cabrera. You can say that this horse automatically is just going to go to the front because it's been running in sprints where it's had 21-second early fractions. But look at the tactic change since they've changed Barnes to Norm Cassie. This horse is in its comfort zone, running 2 furlongs back. It's stretching out. I can't see a world where this horse actually tries to quarter horse it out from the gate, from the 7 hole, to try to catch Lovely Ride, who's going to be, I will go ahead and say, on the lead in this race.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and something that I picked up on as well, because that's one of the things when looking at horses that are stretching out from 6 furlongs to a routing race. One of the things I like to do is just what's their running style in sprints, because it has a huge impact potentially on the way I think that race is going to turn out. It's not just a default, well, it's a sprint horse, so they're going to be up in the lead. not all sprint horses like going to the lead. You see this maybe to a lesser extent with a horse like Casa Creed. When Casa stretches out, doesn't mean Casa Creed goes to the lead every single time. It just, there's varying ways in which those horses try to attack that race. I did notice the shift with moving to the Cassie barn. So if Lovely Ride gets on the lead and a horse like Hot and Sultry decides to sit, and then you have a lot of horses like a Hidden Connection or like Interstate Daydream who like to stalk. They don't need the lead, but they like to stalk and be close. And if you say that front end speed is going to hold up, then suddenly it makes it a little bit more difficult for a horse like Clairiere in particular, I think, who is much more of a deep closer and a grinder at that. I mean, she doesn't have that dazzling turn of foot necessarily as much as she just wears you down. And I feel like she's only better when you stretch her out even more. But you're right. It is really threading the needle in this race.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of what you mentioned for Clairiere is ditto for Secret Oath. Like,
yeah.
where for the top two favorites on the board is the pace going to come from to generate what they need to run into? Now, if you look at just how far above they are on speed figures versus the rest of this field, maybe they don't need the setup. Maybe they're just that better than the field. But, I mean, as someone who has kind of, dedicated his life at this point to being a pace handicapper, I can't ignore what looks like, should be a hot early pace that, under further investigation, should be, honest, if maybe even chilly on the front end for Lovely Ride, who is guaranteed to run her eyeballs out at 15-1 for the meet leading trainer and the meet leading jock.
Yeah.
How do I pass that up?
Yeah, no, I get it. And it's funny. I was just, before we started recording, I was really taking a look closely at the fractions that Lovely Ride has gone the last two times out. And what's fascinating is you could look at the last time and go, well, she got caught in the Bayakoa by Amo Ray. But the reality is you go back to that Pippin. I mean, she was flying up front and going 47-1 base or 47-2 and sustained it and was able to hold on. So if she does just get an easy lead, even if she is running her eyeballs out, like she can sustain that for a mile and a 16th.
Yeah.
And she's very dangerous, I think.
Yeah. And I know the connections of Lovely Ride. So this feels, I know I'm putting out just dirty Homer vibes with my SGP at my Arkansas shirt and talking about the horse that my friends own. But, tossing the whole knowing the connections thing out the window, it's still a horse that I would take a shot at 9 times out of 10. And, it's really going to be, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. And I really love just trying to get, thread the needle and get like ultra cute with a vertical bet here.
Well, a vertical bet I think is going to be particularly interesting. And the horse that I will probably toss from this is a horse like Interstate Daydream, coming off a really long layoff. I'll be honest, was very disappointing last time out, losing as a overwhelmingly heavy favorite to a horse like Green Up, who really didn't fire at all in the cotillion next time out. I know Brad Cox has tremendous stats off the bench. He has tremendous stats, however you want to look at it, because he just turns out winners. I mean, that's what he does. But I just feel like out of the top 3, I have less confidence in Interstate Daydream firing. Clairiere is going to show up because she's a lunch pail type of a horse. She's going to run well. Is it good enough to win? Maybe not, but she's not going to run poorly, I don't think. That personal ensign was a fluke. She had something wrong with her mouth, or tongue, Asmussen said that day. And so otherwise, she's an honest horse. I think Secret Oath is going to give you an honest effort too. D. Wayne really seems to have that horse primed up and ready to go. I'm interested in a jockey that I know we both absolutely love, Raylu Gutierrez. I'm interested in your thoughts on Hidden Connection for Brett Calhoun. This is another horse that should be sitting pretty close to the pace and is coming off a second place effort to Pauline's Pearl in the Houston Ladies Classic at a mile and a 16th. Feels like this horse might have a shot as well at maybe a minor award.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a day where you see the front 2 horses just kind of tear off and duel down the stretch with other horses just kind of, making up ground, passing other tired horses late. I could see it, and I could see it in like a 1-2 finish with a horse like Lovely Ride. I also just not sure that Hidden Connection is fast enough here.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that the horse can get up towards the early pace, but I don't think that the horse can necessarily sustain it the entire way. Getting out there trying to chase, and if the horse tries to jump on the grenade, well, then it just blew up my entire day.
The other, now, just going back to a horse you had mentioned earlier, Hot and Sultry, the sprint horse who is stretching out, very interesting horse. If you think that horse sits, there is some, this horse has some distance pedigree underneath to suggest she could handle 2 turns. She's a half to the horse Scalding, who absolutely was a router. And I know people will see the Speedster up top and just go, oh, it's a sprint horse, nothing more. But there's something there, and it wouldn't surprise me if she can handle the 2 turns and doesn't mind doing the stretch out. I mean, those last 2 5-furlong bullets would indicate she's pretty serious stretching out.
Yeah, I mean, looks like a horse that could handle the stretch out. The tactics fit for, I think, wanting to turn this horse into a 2-turn horse. I think it works. I think Norm Cassie has the right idea here. The whole Speedster thing on top, yeah, but like you mentioned, there's a Medaglia d'Oro on the bottom.
Yeah.
The horse also just really hasn't seemed to do anything wrong at Oaklawn Park. We're looking at a close second in the first try, winner in the second, ships in, close second in the first try, wins the American Beauty, trending up each time. Now, does the horse regress coming off the layoff? Only one of the times that it's regressed speed figure wise is coming off of a layoff. But you're also 50-50 because the horse also took a step forward the next time off of a layoff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And like I said, very interesting horse here. Another horse I'll just mention very quickly, La Vida, the Chilean horse for Ignacio Correas IV. This is a horse, feels like this horse is burning a little bit of money lately. Has been going off as close to the favorite and running honest, but not really getting there to the finish line first. I don't know if I'm really interested in using this horse based upon the fact that it seems to have flattened out, just kind of ran the same speed figure the last 2 times, really hasn't shown a new dimension since coming here to the United States, just kind of pretty much so consistently runs the same speed figure. And I just don't know if that speed figure is good enough in this spot.
Yeah, I'll have to look at the pace figures, but it looks like, but just completely flat races. Like the horse goes out, it runs the exact same speed for every single call. Yeah. Doesn't ever really accelerate. Gets down by 3 lengths, stays down by 3 lengths. Yep. But you know what? It hits the board and it cashes checks.
It does. And if you're going to give me 15-1, I'll use that horse and maybe a deeper vertical exotic like a trifecta wager. But yeah, I just have a hard time seeing this one as a horse who, it's important to point out, went off at basically 2-1, 5-2, I guess, in that Bayacoa last time out and finished 3rd. So had attracted a bit of money, went off as the favorite in the Pippin before that, and the Mistletoe before that. So stepping up into much deeper water here. The one thing I'm interested in your thoughts on this, and maybe, because we have not talked about Secret Oath too much here, but Secret Oath coming off a long layoff, D. Wayne loves to run his horses regularly. And I remember seeing Secret Oath at the Cotillion and just thinking, this horse looks tired. This horse looks like she wants a nap, maybe. And D. Wayne, but then my friends and I joked that, D. Wayne was probably going to run her a week later in some sort of an allowance race if he could. He likes to run his horses regularly. Now she's coming off a layoff and she is firing off some serious bullets. And I just wonder if are we going to see that burst that we saw from Secret Oath early last year in the campaign at Oaklawn Park, where she could just make this middle move. You always talk about that middle move, that move around the 3rd turn sometimes, where she just, takes your breath away almost, that she's not even being asked and she just swallows up 5 horses and just goes. Mm-hmm. It seemed like that move disappeared as the season went on last year.
Yeah,
Any thought that it could come back?
I mean, I think you're right that the horse definitely needed a rest. And the reason if you look back in the history, going back to basically the Martha Washington of last year, the horse has raced in a major stakes race every single month for like 11 months straight. Yeah. So I understand needing the layoff. And, if a horse if the horse is going to do it, the horse is going to do it at Oaklawn Park. We're looking at 4 races where it's 1-3, never missed the trifecta, finished third in the other, which of course was the Arkansas Derby,
Right.
Going against the boys. I mean, definitely a workout tab with more bullets than like a Rambo bandolier, but. But I don't get too worked up about these stakes horses workouts, bullets, whatever, because that's just what they're supposed to do. Like every stakes horse should be putting out bullets every single time. It feels like throwing one out off of a bullet or not a bullet doesn't make very much sense. I've never been a fan of coming off of bullets, but it doesn't matter. She also has the whole she's like a rare tennis shoe because she's by Arrogate and there's a finite number of those out there.
That's true.
I think she's got the chance. I think she has maybe a little bit better chance than Clairiere, especially if you are seeing a rail trip being preferred. The horse drew the 1 hole. All it has to do is just tuck in and bide its time. And if it does so, Clairiere wants to run pretty much the exact same race. Who's more likely to get hung wide? It's going to be Clairiere. I like them both as my underneath because I've pretty well talked myself into this Lovely Ride thing. But I like them to duke it out for second, and whoever doesn't, I think probably might even miss the board.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely see that happening. And so that this actually transitions nicely to, I was going to ask you your top pick, but it sounds like you've talked yourself into Lovely Ride for, as you said, the meets leading trainer and the meets leading jockey at 15-1 at a big price, just taking them gate to wire.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what John Holloman is doing as an owner right now, he's winning like 25% of his races that he's entered. If you look at him dollar-wise, I think he's in the top 4 of owners. And I mean, he's ran 25 times. He's winning a lot of races. He's putting horses on the board a lot of races. Lovely Ride is the kind of horse that I would most likely bet across the board because I think it's a possibility that Secret Oath or Clairiere somehow fall off. And if they fall off, they take a lot of show and place money with them. So that's why I give myself the green light for the win place show. But yeah, top pick. And if I were going to play it in a vertical, I'd probably, unless I'm jumping ahead.
No, go ahead.
I probably key Lovely Ride on top. I take Secret Oath and Clairiere and have them in second. And then I use Interstate Daydream, probably La Vita and Moonswag in third.
Oh, interesting.
So instead of wheeling those 2 place and into third, just say one of those finishes second, one of them's off the board.
I think I'm so I like the way you're playing this, and I think I would probably play it pretty similarly. My heart is rooting for Clairiere, of course, but I do just think it's a hard spot, and you're right. Secret Oath has a better chance because here's the other thing: Secret Oath at least can sit a little closer to the pace. Clairiere goes to dead last every single time. She is going to be 8th of 8 at first call and at second call. Like, exactly where she's going to be. Secret Oath could hit like 5th, and something like that and not sit so far back. So I do worry about that on the track. And, I just wonder how much work Joel Rosario makes her do. And it's a tough one. It's a really tough race. I will say I do like Halt and Sultry quite a bit, I think, underneath. It's a horse that I'm just intrigued by. I think the stretch out might just work, and at a big price, I think you could catch something in a vertical exotic with Hot and Sultry. But I agree with you that if you can get past one of these 2 favorites, if you think they're not going to fire, then the board really opens up, and you're looking at some huge prices. Well, Chase, thank you for joining me, and let everybody know what's going on with you these days. What are you covering? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm doing my horse racing podcast for Sports Gambling Podcast Network, the Notorious OTB, which this gentleman has been, I believe, well over double digit at this point. Might be getting close to triple digit, guess. But I'm doing that. You can find that anywhere you get your podcasts. I'm always with the Big Galoot XFL Gym. We usually talk about XFL football on Sundays, and we've got our Friday Picks Porch. Where I vow to bet on something I don't understand every single week. And that's pretty much it. I'm out here. I'm in these streets. Just yell my name. I'll show up.
Well, I love yelling your name regularly. We have a good time talking every time we chat, and cannot thank you enough for your expertise and your perspective on the Azeri. Make sure to follow Chase on Twitter. And thank you all for tuning into this graded stakes preview of the Azeri. Until next time, friends, my name is Matthew DeSantis. Wishing you a profitable day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.